don't get comfortable with the things you know or think you know. And then what they do, they understand that everybody lies. Because you're living in cover, you do have to be pretty good at lying yourself. You are the only person who knows when you're lying. Go back and watch the video. Learn your tells. And then what you've got to do is learn to pepper them in when you're telling the truth, but also try to dilute them, because you can't stop them when you're telling a lie. And that powerful silence, if somebody's lying, then they will feel the need to convince you because they don't think they believe you. Have you stolen my wallet? And they respond with, I don't even know where you keep your wallet. Well, they didn't say no. What?
And are there other tells?
Yes, there are so many different things that...
Welcome to Cyber and Psych. Today with my guest Gavin Stone. You are a former British intelligence operative, and yes, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Welcome for coming.
First, I would like to ask you, who are you and what is your mission in your life?
Okay, so firstly, I'm a dad. That comes before absolutely anything, so that's the most important thing. But yeah, my background, I've spent about 20 years in the security and intelligence industry. I've worked for various allied governments, primarily as a contractor. However, I have worked also directly for the MOD as well. The British Ministry of Defence, that is. And I'm also ranked 9th in the world body language expert, and starting my career as an author with a few non-fiction books out, as well as some spy fiction books that are released as well.
Oh, cool. You said you worked for the British intelligence. That's like the pendant for CIA in America, is it correct?
Yeah.
How do you... Is there also like this abbreviation or something we can call it?
So yeah, the different British intelligences that there are, you've got MI6, which the official name of it is SIS, or the Secret Intelligence Service. And you've also got MI5, also known as the Security Services. And then the main third one out of the three main ones is also GCHQ, which is Government Communication Headquarters. That's where that's like the kind of British equivalent of the American NSA. So, and they work directly for the government, and then the Ministry of Defence also has their kind of own intelligence branches as well. And then because I've worked as a contractor, I've actually had the privilege of working for several different agencies, including the American agencies and allied governments, which allows me to kind of hop from one to another and work for them all and play with their toys and go on to the next one.
Cool. So you must really have a special skill that they like to use then as a contractor, I guess.
Yeah, it was a bit weird for me because I was more of a jack of all trades and a master of none. I mean, my specialist is human intelligence gathering and covert surveillance. But it was so I'm known in the trade, and this will probably make you laugh. I'm known in the trade as a floater, and what that means is they can pretty much put me anywhere. You know, whether it's working covert surveillance, whether it's surreptitious entry, whether it's training recruits, whether it's human intelligence gathering, whatever category they want to put me into, they know I'm capable, so they can throw me in, either train me up quick and throw me in, or put me somewhere, and I just kind of crack on and get the job done, and and then report back to them, and then they put me somewhere else the following week.
That sounds like very different. It doesn't sound like you have a typical Tuesday every Tuesday.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I haven't worked in the field for a while now, so since I stopped working in the field, I went on then to kind of train operatives in the security and intelligence industry, and I do a lot of teaching and training, and instructor work, that kind of thing. And then backed off further from that to kind of then push my career as an author. So yeah, I'm right now kind of peddling the spy fiction books that I've written, which so if anybody has an interest and wants to know all the tricks of the tradecraft, call it, that's the place to find them, because I've managed to circumvent the the usual systems of not revealing secrets by writing it as fiction.
Cool. So I have to check them out, I guess. So your books cover fiction, but also non-fiction.
Yeah,
Also,
so
like,
oh, sorry.
or yeah, what are they about? Your
So I have
books.
a bestseller, which is a body language book called "How to Tell If Someone Is Lying." Before you ridicule the title, it was based on a Google search, so I could cheat the algorithms to get it to the top, which helped towards making it a bestseller. So that's more about kind of the psychology of lying, the body language, statement analysis, all the different factors that allows you to kind of, read a person and what not just what their body is saying, but what they're verbally saying, and break it down and find out if there's deception there. So that did really, really well. And the others, I started a series of spy fiction novels, which started with The Unforgiven Spy, and then that was followed by The Burning Spy. And I've just finished only in the last few days the next one in the series, which is called The Hunted Spy.
Are they based on your experiences or
Yeah,
just
so
free?
yeah, the first one is it is based on first-hand experience. So everything in there is written on things that I've either done myself, whether it's so they didn't happen sequentially in my life, but they are all based on first-hand experience. Each individual part of it is, except for the part where the main character's wife and daughter gets kidnapped. So
Okay.
that's luckily such would never happen to me, despite how many people have asked. I've tried to see if I can get it done, but nobody wants her. Um, but no, that's something I've worked on K&R cases, so I just took my experience from that and shifted it over to to the fiction book. But everything else in there, not only is it based on first-hand experience, but I've kept the continuity 100%. So if I say a website, it exists in real life. If I give you a code
Oh,
to a
nice.
door in a government facility, that is the code to the door.
No.
Or it was at the time of they do
I hope
change the
I hope
door.
they changed it.
They do quite regularly, yeah. So, but that was in book one. Book two is it's a little bit more, even though it's based on experience. Some of it are things more so that I've done in training or theoretically, that kind of thing, or I have a knowledge of. So it might not necessarily be things I've done in the field. And book three, very much the same.
So if you write something and the people will go into that story, it must be very interesting. So it does, or was your work like Bond or James Bond or something? Was it similar or is it like
I'd
not
love to say
comparable?
that it was. So, in truth, and this is the thing that most people don't get, 99% of it is actually pretty boring. It's research, it's
Okay.
kind of sitting and watching and learning, and it takes a particular, especially when it comes to surveillance, it takes a particular kind of person to do it because you might be sitting in your car, outside somebody's house, further down the street from 5 a.m. and it might be 11 o'clock the same night before you finally get to see what you're after, or you might not even get it and have to do it all over the next day. So the patience involved is huge, and you have to build up a picture, what we call POL, or patterns of life. You have to build up a picture of the target and kind of find out where do they go shopping, where do they go drinking, where do they play golf, where bits and pieces that you then put together, and then when you establish those patterns of life, you can then do the approach, or what they call the bump, and that, or sometimes you have to do something that we kind of nicknamed a smile campaign, where you're gradually inserting yourself into their life bit by bit through familiarity. So,
Oh, okay.
it gets exciting, and there has
Yeah.
been some times in my life where I've done things that have definitely had my heart rate raised, and and I've seen a lot of things that I wish I could unsee. But yeah, that's all part and parcel of the job.
Does that have to be a special person to do this? Do you have to have special skills or something? Because, I mean, how did you get into it?
So, so Yes and no, but not in the traditional sense of. I mean, there are things that can help you. Having a degree, having a second language that you can speak fluently, having certain academic qualifications will certainly help. But they're looking more for personality traits, and they need somebody who can kind of think outside the box a little bit. They need somebody who's okay with understanding that what we're doing is breaking rules. But more importantly, they need somebody who's coachable. Somebody they don't want people who make excuses and say, "Oh, I don't know how to do it," or "I couldn't find this." Or they need people with a level of determination that find a way. They
Mm-hmm.
don't make excuses. They come up with ways to make something happen,
Okay.
and that's kind of that level of determination, along with coachability, understanding that you don't know everything, and that you sometimes need people to teach you. And once you start down that path of learning that there is plenty more to learn and enjoying that, it really opens things up for you. It changes the way you think a hell of a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it makes the whole thing a lot more enjoyable. So, but as for how I got into it, not the usual way. So most of the time, you kind of it's usually when you're at college, you get a tap on the shoulder from somebody from the government who's kind of been watching your progress, and
Yes.
they'll kind of turn around and say, "Look, have you thought about serving your country and working for the government?" Or they'll introduce you to it in that respect. I did it all the wrong way round. I started off in the private sector as a private investigator, and one thing led to another. I got good at what I did. I started taking on some government contracts, and then just managed to rub shoulders with the right people and say the right words. I used what I'd been taught to kind of get my way in with the relevant departments, and then before long, I was getting offered more and more jobs. I think to start with, I think they offered me some really difficult jobs just to try and get rid of me.
Really?
Yeah, I think I was pestering them, so they gave me some really awful jobs, thinking, yeah, there's no way he's going to be able to do this. And then when I actually proved that I could and that I was able and capable, that I think they kind of paid attention and went, hang on, this guy might be a bit more useful than what we first thought. Started taking me a
Interesting.
bit more seriously, and yeah, got me doing some more of the juicy stuff.
So, and the juicy stuff is more like pretending or getting more into the psychology of people and the whole really human stuff.
Yeah, so human is down to kind of um, you need to find people who have access to secrets, and that could be government, it
Mm.
could be commercial. So you might have a particular aircraft corporation that they're a corporate giant that build aircraft and defence kind of technology for the government. So you don't necessarily need to be going towards finding people who work at the Kremlin, for example. You might just
Mhm.
find somebody who works at one of the aviation companies. They know what aircraft they're building for what government, what the designs are. And this is where I've said it a few times. The my definition of spying is the most dangerous way in the world to make friends. And this is what you kind of do. You make friends with these people, and you do it in
Yes.
such a way that they end up sharing information with you.
So we just have to read Dale Carnegie and we can be spies.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Well,
So,
but did you get like coaching in lying then? Because you wrote a book about it, so somehow you got into it and you probably have gotten really well at it, or at least
yeah,
at detecting it.
well, the government have this thing where they do a lot of role play. They love, especially the Ministry
Ah,
of Defence, they love role play, and what they do the training, make it as realistic as they possibly can.
yeah.
So they'll set you up with a target, and they'll have you kind of get used to recruiting. They call it recruiting the asset, and bit by bit they'll change it up, and until you've got so kind of you've had that many practice runs at it when it comes down to doing it in real life, you know the common objections, you know how to handle situations, and
Mm.
because you're living in cover, you do have to be pretty good at lying yourself. So what they do a special little thing where they sit you down in a room, there's a camera on you, and you kind of forget it's there. The gentleman who's talking, he was a gentleman in my case, sometimes he is a lady, and they're just talking to you for probably 3 hours. And they're just having conversation, asking you questions, asking you about your life and blah, blah, blah. And then what they do, they understand that everybody lies. They know that people lie, and so they don't expect anything other than that to happen at certain points.
Okay.
But they give you the recording at the end, and they say, right, you are the only person who knows when you're lying. Nobody else does, but you knew when you were telling the truth. You knew when you were being deceptive. Go back and watch the video. Learn your tells. Learn what you do when you're lying.
Nice.
And then what you've got to do is pepper them in, learn to pepper them in when you're telling the truth, but also try to dilute them, because you can't stop them, but you can dilute them when you're telling a lie. And that way it becomes part of your baseline of who you are, so that people can't differentiate between the two.
So the good liars know their tells.
Yeah, the good one.
What
Yeah,
you're
the good
saying.
one. That's part of the training that we had in it. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of humans lie up to 200 times a day, and usually it's only white lies. The kind of, does my rear end look big in this, darling? Kind of questions. They kind of, they don't want to tell the truth, but so it's not necessarily bad lies. We all do it. We tell our children particular things like Santa Claus is real and whatever the case may be. It's not that we're being malicious with our lives. It's just it's more about feelings than what it is about facts. So with the fact that people lie so frequently, they actually start to become numb to it and become kind of very proficient at it. But with that in mind, that all changes when the stakes change. So, for example, I could say to you, hey, Jill, did you go to Hawaii yesterday? And you could go, yeah, of course I did. And there wouldn't really be any tells there, even though you probably, and I'm assuming you didn't go to Hawaii yesterday. So there wouldn't be any tells there because there's no consequences. But if you take somebody who has been accused of murder, for example, or accused of treason, and they're possibly facing life in prison or a death sentence or whatever the case may be, and the stakes are really, really high, then there's a complete physiological change. The cortisol that's flowing through your body, everything that's happening physically to you, increases tells. Your blink rate goes up, your breath location changes, all of your different tells will be so much more amplified because of the fact that the stakes are a lot higher.
And how can you prevent that?
If you've had the kind of training that I've had, then it's a case of calming yourself down and bringing things down to facts and not emotions. So you have to remember, if you're in an interview room and a police officer is saying to you, you did this and you did that, and we've got proof that you did this, we've got proof you did that, we've got you on camera doing the other, and they're telling you, then basically you're kind of caught in a situation where unless you've got concrete evidence to show otherwise, you're pretty stuck. If, on the other hand, they're asking you questions, so what did you do and where were you? They have gaps, and this is where you can then play on those gaps. And one of the most effective things you can do is say, I can't remember. Because nobody can prove otherwise. Nobody can say, well, yes, you do. Silence is better, and again, people tend to use words in defense and fill those awkward silences if they think people don't believe them. We were told, ask somebody a question, did you do X, and then stay silent, and they might give you an answer and go, no, I didn't, and stay silent again, don't respond. And that powerful silence, if somebody's lying, then they will feel the need to convince you because they don't think they believe you. So they'll go deeper into more and more words to try and get themselves out of it. People who aren't lying, who didn't do it, they've dismissed it and moved on because they don't need to worry about it because they didn't do it.
Like over-explaining.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. But in your book, you write about how to tell if someone is lying, but to tell if someone is lying badly, or if to tell if someone is like a really good liar and tell anyway.
Yeah, and there are lots of things in something that so I'm trained in something called statement analysis. I was trained by the creator of statement analysis, absolutely fantastic gentleman, and he looks at the structure of a sentence and the meanings behind it, and this is kind of partway into psychology as well. For example, if you were to say to somebody, "Have you stolen my wallet?" and they respond with, "I don't even know where you keep your wallet." Well, they didn't say no, and they didn't answer the question. What they did, they pacified you. So
Yes.
just because they don't know where you keep your wallet doesn't mean that they haven't found it, they haven't picked it up, they haven't stolen it, they haven't come across it. So, the most important thing you're looking for to start with is a no. No, I haven't taken your wallet. I don't know where it is. I haven't seen it. If you get that no, there stands a chance of telling you the truth. But if they're trying to divert you, or if they're answering the question with something that pacifies you rather than actually answers the question, that's when you need to take a step back and just ask yourself, hang on, did this person answer my question? Or did they just give me something that will make me, suspect somebody else?
Yeah. So to really look at what they're saying, or listen to what they're saying.
Yeah.
And are there other tells?
Yeah, especially verbally. There are so many different things that people do things called what's known as resume statements. And I knew a gentleman who was really, really good at this. And you could turn around and say, for example, "Hey, did you steal those boxes?" And he'd put his arm around you and he'd say, "Hey, Gav, think about this a minute. I do this church, and I do that for the community, and I do this for that charity group, and I donate to the other." And they paint a picture of who they are, and then what they do at the end of it, they'll ask the question, "If I do all of this, do you really think I'm the kind of guy to steal those boxes?" And at the end, this is really, really, really powerful, because what it does, it has you questioning your own question. Okay. Rather than you getting the answer of yes, I did, or no, I didn't. You start going, "Oh, yeah, he really is that kind of person. Would he really have taken the boxes?" And then you start doubting yourself, so you're dismissing, "Oh, okay, yeah, maybe he's right." So you've got to listen, that to what's been said, in the sense of, and I love my friend for this. She said to me once, "Truth tellers convey, whereas liars convince." So truth tellers have got facts on their side. "No, I didn't do it. I wasn't there. I was in this place, and stayed there till 11 o'clock at night." That's it. They just give the information factually and deliver it in a way that you go, "Okay, brilliant." Liars will try and convince you that they didn't do it. They will come up with all sorts of stories, sometimes elaborate, sometimes going on and on and on, way longer than they need to try and sell you the fact that they didn't do a particular thing, because they don't have facts on their side, so they have to use whatever's at their disposal, and that's usually some kind of elaborate story.
True. Are there also signs in the body language that we could detect?
Yeah, so there is a physiological change that happens when somebody starts telling lies under high pressure. And to start with, one of the things is their blink rate. If you establish a person's normal blink rate,
this is a reminder.
Sorry,
Alexa.
So sorry, Mark.
Does she like the word blink rate?
So somebody's blink rate, you establish a baseline for them. How often and how quickly they blink, and it's not a difficult thing to do. You just watch them over a course of 6 seconds. If they blink 2 or 3 times, multiply by 10, 20 to 30 blinks per minute. Job done, and that's then standard for them. And this is the most important thing, is understanding what somebody's baseline is. It's always important to get a baseline for somebody. And then if you notice that when you're then talking to them 5 minutes later and you ask a particular question, and all of a sudden their blink rate jumps from 20 to 30 a minute to 80 to 90 a minute, that is a huge stress signal. And all of a sudden So, and I can see you getting a little bit paranoid, like, do I need to, like, eyes wide open? No, I'm not the blink rate or your body language. So, people start to get self-conscious when I talk about
Yes,
these
now I'm very conscious about my blinking.
No,
I'm like, I didn't even notice that I was blinking at all before.
Most people don't until you actually kind of start talking about it, and then all of a sudden they start getting self-conscious. But yeah, the blink rate increases under stress, and that's because the eyes are constantly trying to clear the screen, kind of thing. And then you've got other physiological changes, like when somebody's relaxed, they belly breathe. When somebody's getting tense, they breathe in the chest. So you can look for the locations of their breath location. Are they relaxed and breathing through their belly, or as it's gone up to the chest, is it more short, sharp breaths now? These are some of the kind of bodily changes, as it were. To some extent, you can then even get people when they get nervous, their mouth starts to get dry. Kind of.
That's like that's very obvious.
And again, this doesn't necessarily show deception, but it does show stress. So you then have to ask yourself, okay, why is this person getting stressed? All I asked them was, where were they on Sunday, or whatever the case may be, and if they've got nothing to hide and nothing to be nervous about, then there's no problem. So, but delivery is everything with that, because you need to understand, that some people just get nervous just by having the spotlight shined on them. So you have to take that into account. No, that's when it comes to establishing the baseline first, making the individual relaxed as they possibly can be. And I've said so many times, that baseline is all important, of understanding what an individual's baseline is, and that's the only way you can then know if they deviate from it. So fallacies like folding your arms, for example, you've heard people say, "Oh, he's folding his arms, he's being defensive." It's not true. It's something that some people just fold their arms because they're comfortable doing it. Some people might do it because they're cold. Some people might do it out of habit. Maybe they work the doors at the nightclubs and it's just their usual stance. So you can't take one single action as this action means that thing. It doesn't work like that. But what you can do, you can look for clusters. And this is where, if you find 3 or more clusters, that's when you need to pay attention. If somebody folds their arms, pulls their feet in, maybe crosses their legs, their breath location changes, their blink rate increases, and you've got these cluster of things happening, that's when, if they're sort of fidgeting from bum cheek to bum cheek or fiddling, this is when you go, okay, something's changed. They've not done that the entire time throughout this entire interview, but now I talk about this particular subject, and all of a sudden there's that massive deviation. And when that happens, that's when you need to pay attention and say, right, I need to know a bit more about that, or drill deeper there.
And then you can change the subject and come back to this topic. And if they do this shifting again, then you're like, I think is that correct?
You can get them if you notice a change and you're not sure and you want to test the theory, go back to something they were comfortable with talking about earlier, get them relaxed again and talk about that particular topic for a few minutes, and then bring up that area that was sensitive. If you get the same reaction again or something similar, that's when you're seeing patterns, and that's when you go, okay, now I know something's definitely wrong.
That's interesting. Are there like myths, for example, the one you just said about the crossing of the arms, that people always mistake for that's a lie, but it's not at all?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that, because television has a way of oversimplifying things.
Yeah.
And they might turn around and say, oh, he put his hand on his chin while he was talking, so therefore it was a lie. And then what happens is it starts off an urban legend of kind of, oh, if somebody goes like this and puts a hand on their chin while they're talking, then they're lying. And that's just simply not the case. It might be for that particular individual, but not for everybody. And this is where every time you watch a new person, you have to establish that baseline for them in order to know whether dissociated from it. So it's a bit like with body language, unfortunately, it's a bit like learning a whole new language every time you meet another person. You have to learn everything about them for what's normal in each circumstance.
And did you also write a book about body language or just about the lying?
So there are sections in it about body language. There's another section about the statement analysis. There's another section about the psychology behind it. There's different sections that all together help you learn about deception. And then to round it off at the end, I've even put a little bonus section in about how to beat a polygraph lie detector machine.
Oh, how do you do that?
In reality, there is no such thing as a lie detector machine. It's a stress detector. So
it's a what detector?
Stress detector. So it measures the perspiration rates on your fingertips. It measures your heart rate, your breathing rate. It measures all your vital signs. And what they're looking for a spike in the vital signs because they might ask a question that has made you nervous or made you uncomfortable, so therefore your vital signs spike. And if their job is to ask you several questions, get you nice and relaxed, and they go like, the spikes go like this, and then if all of a sudden they ask you a question and it shoots up here, then all of a sudden you go, okay, that's different to all the others. So what you can do is you can increase the spike at the beginning of what we call the test questions. And then anything that comes under that spike afterwards is not considered a lie. The machine doesn't pick it up and say that, because so they ask you two what they call sample questions or test questions. And so they'll turn around and say, is your name Gavin Stone? You go, yes. Have you ever been to the moon? Yes. And the machine then calibrates to say, right, the first one was a truth, the second one was a lie. So that stopped there, that one stopped way up here. So if you can make the first question cause you to spike, and there are ways of doing this psychologically where you can think of something that and every individual is different. Maybe you're afraid of spiders, so you look at your palm and visualize a great big tarantula on your palm, something that's going to make you terrified, or anything that's hugely emotional that will cause your vital signs to spike, or physical pain if you can manage it, biting your lip without people seeing it, that kind of thing. That will cause your vital signs to spike dramatically on the test questions. So therefore, later on, when you are being deceptive, it won't spike as high as the first one, or it won't exceed the first spike, and it will allow you to kind of remain within that safety zone. And then the second way is you can kind of put yourself into a form of self-hypnosis. And this is where you keep yourself so calm that the machine doesn't pick it. So you're also almost answering on autopilot. And everybody's done it, their spouse maybe has been in the background asking them questions, and they're too busy kind of reading or watching the telly, and they're just going, yeah, no. And the beauty of these tests is they're all yes or no questions. So you're not really paying attention if you're in this kind of state of self-hypnosis. And the way to do it is to simply sit there and replay a movie that you're extremely familiar with from the beginning in your head.
Oh.
Just sit there and visualize, for me it was Dusk Till Dawn. It was one that I'd watched.
I love this movie.
Yeah, I knew every single word. I probably knew the script better than the actors. And of course, I'd just sit there and I'd play that. And prior to that, it was Cool Hand Luke. So I'd just sit there and I'd replay all of it in my head, scene by scene by scene. And while the person was asking me the questions, I'd be just like, yes, no, and that was it. My vitals wouldn't spike because I was in such a calm and relaxed state, because in my head I was watching a movie.
But From Dusk Till Dawn is not so. It's very active. So.
Yeah, that's true.
That's very interesting. Self-hypnosis. It sounds a bit like method acting, the whole thing. You are getting into a state or you get your blood pressure up or your heart rate. So it sounds, you're really getting into a certain state with just your thoughts.
Yeah. And if you can do that, and it does take a bit of practice, but if you can do it, it's something that will get you through that kind of lie detector test. But at the same time, in all honesty, if you're a truthful person, you shouldn't need to.
Yes. Was it hard for you to get those skills?
It took a bit of practice, but eventually, once I'd got the hang of it, it was something I could do quite easily after that then. A lot of it is just about getting the reps in. A lot of the training that we do is just doing it so many times that it just becomes so natural to you, because you reach a level of unconscious competence that allows you to just kind of, perform even if it's under pressure.
Because Matthew, when I interviewed him, said that they did a lot of role play too, and they recorded themselves when they had to tell some stories and stuff. And in the beginning, it was just quite embarrassing or uncomfortable to see himself to lie so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. The best way I can describe it: have you ever heard your own voice on an answering machine or a recording that's played back, and everybody kind of cringes? Nobody seems to like their own voice, and of course, it's very much like that feeling you get. When you.
Yes. You just have to get through it, then in the beginning. And interesting. Yes, that's a very interesting topic. You mentioned also one part in your book, the psychology part. What do you talk about there?
Yeah, so this is understanding like the reasons behind why people lie. You can track that back to two primary reasons every single time. If somebody is lying, there's only two reasons why people lie, and it's either protection or gain. It's as simple as that. It's either protection of themselves or others, or it's gain. It may be monetary, maybe a physical object, or maybe even just the fact that it's kind of, social kudos or whatever the case may be. People do it all the time. Yeah, I swear the fish was this big, and it really wasn't, but they're trying to, they get the satisfaction, even though they know they're lying, and even though they know that it was half the size of what they're telling their friends. The feeling of that kind of social acceptance. So, but that in itself is a gain. So yeah, and if you can work out which one of the two categories that the person is lying, whether it's protection or gain, that helps you have insight into the reasons behind why they're lying, and then how to make them feel safe if you want to then start leading them towards a confession. So like I say, in a protection scenario, it might be they're just protecting themselves from going to prison, or protecting a family member, or whatever the case may be. And if you can get them into a place where they feel safe and protected in telling the truth, then that takes you down the right path, if you understand the reason behind the lie, towards getting the confession that you want.
Is that also what social engineers do, to make us feel safe, and so we open up and do click on links or whatever?
Yes, pretty much. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, there's different types of attacks in the cybersecurity world, but social engineers, a lot of the time. So I used to do something called penetration testing a few years ago, and this was before the cyber world. This was like physical penetration testing, where I was hired to get into everything from military bases to headquarters and that kind of thing. And I've got a lot of skills when it comes to picking locks and covert method of entry, bypassing alarms and cameras and that kind of thing. So I thought, yeah, this will be perfect for it. And in all honesty, very rarely needed it. Most of the time, I would be walking into a building and somebody would be holding the door open for me. It'd be that simple, It's just stand around in the smoke.
Just too nice.
Yeah. Just kind of anything. You walk behind somebody who's about to go through the door, pat yourself like you're going, oh, I haven't got my pass, and they'll go, oh, it's all right, come on. And as I say, One of the favourites was always the smoke shelter, and even if you don't smoke, there's ways around it. You can either share a cigarette with somebody. If you do, you get chatting to them, you become friends, and then you go into the building together. You just make up some reason why you're there. Maybe you're there to fix a photocopy or whatever the case may be. And if you don't smoke, it's even better because it allows you to strike up a conversation. And you can say, I've actually stopped. I quit 6 years ago, but I still enjoy it now and again. And I don't want to smoke. I don't want to do it again. But once in a while, I'd just like to inhale and smell. And of course, what this does, most smokers want to quit and can't. But those who tried also understand, and those ex-smokers also understand that. Oh, I get that. Yeah, so you don't look like a weirdo just loitering in the smoke shelter, and that really helps to build the rapport. And if you know what you're doing and you're using your social engineering skills to the fullmost, that will then allow you to kind of have them let you in the building.
Rapport is something where you establish trust, right?
Yeah, so this is building the relationship between somebody, and sometimes it could be just the smallest of things. The same watch, the same clothes, the same car. You went to the same school. I'm sure you've done it yourself. You've come across people that have maybe even been to the same vacation destination. You go, "Oh, I've been there. What did you think of it?" You're having a conversation.
So sympathy.
It just builds the kind of foundation for the new relationship. And so there's a saying in the world of social engineering: if they do something like me, have something like me, or are anything like me, then they're like me. And I'm a good person, so therefore they must be a good person.
Right. We always think about ourselves and apply to the others.
Yeah. And that is, through any kind of familiarity. Like I say, it could just be simply the same brand of T-shirt that you see somebody wearing, maybe the same watch, and you go, "Oh, I've got one of those," and all of a sudden you've got that kind of instant bond because you've both got the same taste, you've both got the same preferences, and it allows you to kind of, like I say, form that relationship with that person from there on.
Did you also do some kind of like something similar like voice phishing, maybe just calls where you had to convince someone?
So I've done a few things like that, and so the most important thing when it comes to this kind of operation, if you want to call it that, is authority. There is something called the authority bias. And so many people, if they're skeptical of somebody, then they may not go ahead and do something, especially if somebody sounds nervous. If you've got an authority and you kind of project that authority down the phone line, everything changes. If I ring somebody up and say, "Good afternoon, is that Mr. Smith?" And they go, "Yes, you're right, Mr. Smith. I'm Sergeant Stone calling from the local precinct. What I want you to do, I want you to go to the window right now. I want you to open it up. I want you to have a look outside and tell me, is there a blue Ford Transit van there?" And before they've even asked who you are,
I want to go now to the and look if there is a Ford.
If you say to the right authority, they're like kind of they're doing what without even thinking about it. And of course you can then turn around and say, so you can ramp things up then. If they start turning around and say, "No, there's not one out there, who is this?" You go, "Look, I'll explain everything in a minute, but it's really, really important right now. I need you to go to your computer. I need you to type in the details of this website. Don't worry. I'm glad the transit van's not there yet, but we do have time to save your company from a lot of problems that are incoming if we don't get this resolved right now. So please open your window, get your browser open, and follow my instructions." And people start doing it. They kind of they follow your lead if you say it with enough authority. You add the panic in there, you add the time constraints in there, you add a lot of other little bits and pieces that are peppered in there, and all of a sudden, you've got somebody who's compliant and doing pretty much whatever you want them to within reason.
Yes, I can imagine that works.
Yeah.
Do you like choose a role, or for example, for me it probably would be harder to do the authority, but maybe some helpless person who is naive or something would be better for me. Is that a thing? Do you play to your strengths, or do you just
Yeah, so because confidence is key with everything, so you're always going to play to your strengths as best as you can. If you don't believe you can do something, then you either take a different approach or you bring somebody in that can. So there are such a mixture of people within the intelligence world, and some people are introverted, some people are extroverted. You got ambiverts who can flip flop between the two, as it were, and of course, if you're confident enough in something to say, "Yeah, I can learn to do that," even if I can't do it, I can learn to do that. Then go away and learn to do it as fast as you possibly can. Get proficient enough to go and do the job. If you have doubts, then say, right, I can't do it. Who can? Who can we call in that can do this?
yeah.
And that will change for each and every operation. So CIA have this thing called MICE, which stands for Money, Ideology, Compromise, and Ego. And those are the way that they kind of recruit somebody. Now, sometimes that's changed to RICE. They change it from money to reward, because it doesn't necessarily always have to be monetary. So it's reward, ideology, compromise, and ego, and these are the ways you can get somebody to kind of do what you want them to do, as it were. Is it monetary or reward reasons? Is it ideology? You might have somebody who, say, a female in a particular country who is what's the word I'm looking for? Oppressed. And you say, well, look, we can help you fight this oppression if you get us this. And so there's different ways of through ideology. It might be political ideology, it might be social ideology. Compromise is one that's very, very seldom used because it's like a single bullet. You can generally only use it once.
Okay.
If you're blackmailing somebody, for example, you say, look, I'll show these photos of you with your mistress to your wife if you don't do it. They're working for you reluctantly, so therefore they go the extra mile. It's not the same as building a relationship with somebody and then wanting to do extra for you, and that's where the Western agencies are a lot better at performing that, because our relationships with our assets are really empathy driven and strongly built, so that the person you recruit, they really want to do more for you because you're doing so much for them.
So those are like the basic motives of us, like reward and ideology, compromise, and
Ego, yeah. So
ego.
Ego is something that again it is used, but it's generally only used short term because it doesn't yield the most reliable results. And I mean, if you can imagine a guy in his 50s or 60s in a bar and kind of having a few drinks, and some beautiful ladies kind of buying him with drinks and flirting with him and saying, "Oh, I bet you've got all sorts of access to secrets, haven't you?" And if he thinks it's going to impress her, he goes, "Oh yeah, I know everything about the new submarine that we're building," and and he probably doesn't know anything about it. He's probably the janitor, maybe. But the thing is, he's not going to say that if he thinks it's going to impress her, and so therefore the intelligence gleaned through ego isn't always the most reliable. So it's one that we'll only generally use it if, say, we need access to a building, and she might turn around and say to him, "Can you get in there now? Can you show me? Can I have a look around?" And then all of a sudden, you go, "Yeah, of course I can." And he uses his passcode that you hopefully already know you've got to get you into the building, and he doesn't know that you've got, say, a camera in your purse that you're clicking and taking photos of the building security. That's it sounds a bit Mission Impossible, but that's the more likely scenario that you would use ego.
Sounds likely.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how you use the ego. So the ideology or the reward are the most powerful then
Yeah.
to get people to talk. and
That's,
build
yeah.
rapport.
And you have to psychologically profile the target first as well. So it's no good. You might go up to somebody, for example, say you want to onboard a Swiss banker. It's no good going and offering $10,000 to a Swiss banker. He'll laugh at you. His lunch. So that might not be his driver. At the same time, some people, even if they're already very, very wealthy, will 10,000 because of the fact that they are just greedy. It's as simple as that. You have to get the psychological profile. There are some people out there who are very, very rich, but they'd cross the street for a dime because of the fact that they are that kind of person. They are just simply greedy or tight or whatever you want to call it. And then, like I said, there are other people. There might be other methods of reward that you can use to motivate them.
And how do you get this psychological profile?
So again, you have to build the relationship up. There's a bit of a process with the whole thing of once you've established the patterns of life of this person, and you've kind of inserted yourself into their life, and then you've started building your relationship. The entire time that you're talking to them, you're paying attention to everything they say. You're listening to all the words. You're making a mental note of absolutely anything and every leverage point and whatever else. At the end of every session, the minute it's over, you go away and you write down everything you've learned and all the possibilities that could stem from it, so that when you have the next conversation, you can explore them further. That does sound very manipulative, but at the same time, the whole thing is also, like I said to you, when I say it's empathy driven, it needs to be empathy driven. It's no good just going and finding levers to pull. When you're kind of in the process of recruiting an asset, the one question that you kind of need to have on your mind is, what can I do for this person that makes their life better in a way that they'd be happy? And that's the most important. In a way that they'd be happy. So, for example, if you see that they're driving an old beat-up car, and you might think, I'll buy them a brand new, Chrysler or something. They'll absolutely love that. And you go out and do that. They won't be deeply offended at that. You think it's good because you think, they've got that beat-up old piece of junk, and I'm giving them something really, really great. But then, you risk offending them. They might like the old beat-up old car. Maybe it belonged to their dad, or their grandparents. Been in the years. Maybe it's something they bought as a project that they want to do bit by bit. There's so many different scenarios. So it must be you're asking yourself in a way that makes them happy. So sometimes even giving them what they want or what they think they want isn't always the answer. So you have to work very, very hard to say, how do I carefully navigate and improve this person's life in a way that is going to be beneficial for all parties. And once you've found that, when you deliver that, and you become this person's friend, then it gets to the point where when you need something from them, 9 times out of 10, you don't even have to ask the question. You don't. Yeah, you just they'll say, so how are things going or whatever, and you get in the conversation, you go, yeah, really great. However, the new fighter jet that your government's working on right now, I'd love to know more about the kind of the jet engines. And they go, yep, no problem, leave that with me. And before you know it, they're bringing you schematics and all sorts of things. And so you don't generally have to pitch them. You can just show an interest in a particular topic, and all of a sudden they'll start bringing you more and more details. And you can ask for something specific if you want. You say, oh wow, that's great. I'd love to know more about the communication systems they use, and then all of a sudden they go, I'll get you that too. So
sounds like you must have learned to be like a really good listener.
I try, although it's one of those things. A great guy, Jim, a good friend of mine, James Pyle, he said, God gave you 2 of these and 1 of these for a reason. Use that ratio. And this is where the empathy side of it comes in. I remember having meeting somebody at an embassy party once, and we were actually introduced, and it was his husband that left me talking to her, and within 3 minutes we'd gone from like 50-50 conversation of, exchanges to 90-10. I was 10% talking and 90% and at the end of it, I think she'd probably spoken for half an hour solid without me saying a word. I was just standing there nodding and agreeing or whatever, and I'd hardly said 5-6 sentences the entire conversation. And at the end of it all, she was saying, "Oh, it was so great talking with you. You're such a great person." and this relationship was wonderful.
Yeah.
And I'd hardly said anything. She got this in her head that I was such a great person, purely because of the fact that I'd taken the time to listen to her empathetically.
Yeah, show interest and if you want to build a psychological profile, are you listening then to some certain words? Like some
But we
trigger
can
words or
also
something?
use. So we're trained in the art of elicitation, and that is something that is extremely underrated. And this is where, as an investigator, and this is where a lot of police officers go wrong. We were told in the intelligence community, questions are dead. Never use questions. So, for example, you've probably heard it, where somebody might turn around and say, "Oh, there's some guy come around here asking questions about you," and and it gets
Yes.
people guard up. You ask questions, it gets people's guard up. They start getting defensive. What's he asking all these questions for? Well, elicitation, you make provocative statements, and that is something that kind of elicits a response from them, but it also feels natural. The conversation's flowing. So, for example, if you were, say, in the back of an Uber and you turn around to the driver and say the usual kind of, "Oh, have you had many weird customers?" He'll probably go, "Yeah," and that'll be it. The conversation's dead. Whereas if you turn around and say, something along the lines of, "Well, these Uber drivers I've been chatting to recently, they said there's some really wild stories of some of the passengers that they've had. I've found it so interesting listening to those kind of things." You've not asked a question, you've made a statement. But you watch the difference when the Uber driver goes, "Oh yeah, you wouldn't believe some of the people I've had in here, and once I had this happen, and once I had that happen," and you haven't asked a single question, but the conversation has just flowed. It seems natural, and you're getting information. So I'll use an Uber driver for an example there, but this could be in any walk of life, in any scenario. You make those provocative statements, and find the ways of turning a question into a statement and leave it, and that person, they will just naturally respond in conversing with you in a way that gives you information without the defenses on their guard up.
Oh, that's interesting. So you must have had so many amazing stories and wild stories.
Yeah, a few too many, and a few. Unfortunately, some of the best ones I can't share. Not publicly anyway. Maybe some other time. But yeah, it's been good. It's been great for me, and especially with the fact that being a contractor, I've had the privilege of working with different departments, different agencies, different governments, learning all the ways that each of them operates so differently. And I've enjoyed it. I've got to know some great people over the years. I've worked with some amazing guys from the intelligence community, from the police and law enforcement, as well as special forces, and they are just a wonderful and amazing group of people. And every single time I speak to any of them, I always learn something new.
And so, what's next? Books or?
Yeah, so I do have another book out on the way, and I've also I'm the co-founder of something called Spy Q, and I've said it deliberately very slowly there because somebody once thought that I'd said it Spike You.
Yes.
It's the word spy, SPY, with a Q, and Spy Q is what we've done. I've got together with a group of friends and associates from the intelligence community from all the different agencies, all the world's best leading intelligence agencies, CIA, MI6, the Mossad, KGB, so on and so forth. The whole alphabet soup's in there. And we've taken the psychological training given to intelligence officers and we've condensed it in a way that it can be used by the general public to improve their life in any single area. So whether it's kind of mental resilience, whether it's influence, whether it's negotiating, learning sales, so many different ways that it can be utilized. And we've put that out there as a high ticket event that we're offering to people to be able to come along to the events, do the training that spies get in order to kind of, really have the advantage to everything they do in life.
That sounds really useful. What would you, if you could, give to the listeners something that they could take from your knowledge now to be more safe in maybe digital world or also physical world from toxic or manipulative people? Could you, offer some advice?
I think, one of the things that we get taught is not to always take everything at face value, but more importantly, don't get comfortable with the things you know or think you know. And this is something that it happens so frequently. I see it all the time. You get this complacency of people that they open their phone so many times a day that they're not aware of who's looking when they're putting their PIN number into their phone or who's behind them. Or actually gave a talk for the British NHS, the National Health Service, the once, and I remember standing at the back of the room and at the back row there are all these people who are at a cybersecurity conference, all holding their phones up and putting their PIN in, and I could see, and I remember going to the front of the room and kind of telling that everybody pretty much on the back row, I could open all of your phones. If I took your phone, found your phone, slipped your phone out of your pocket, I know those who don't have pins and can just open the screen, which is even worse, and those who do have pins and have shown me without you even realising. And I said, you're at a cybersecurity conference, so it's something that people, like I said, they get comfortable doing things, they get comfortable opening emails, they get comfortable going to particular places, and because of that level of complacency and comfort, they don't check surroundings as much as they should. Situational awareness, it's absolutely vital in the world for survival in every way, both physically and cyber.
And be more aware of your surroundings then.
Yeah, and again, just kind of logging onto Wi-Fi, going to particular websites that it looks like it's the one that you're used to, or the Wi-Fi, you haven't noticed that there's a slight kind of digit difference or something. You might stop in a hotel and it's called the Crown Hotel, and underneath there's another Wi-Fi that says the Crown Wi-Fi. And of course, you think, well, which one is it? So you just click on whichever one that you think is the right one. Yeah. Instead, go down to the reception and say, I just want to double check here, which one's you? Because if one says the Crown Hotel and the one says, the Crown Guests or the Crown Hotel Guests Wi-Fi, you don't know if that's somebody else in a van with a technology that's trying to do a man-in-the-middle attack. So there are Make sure these double checks. I know they're a little bit of an inconvenience, but could end up really saving you in the long run.
Yeah, great inputs. Thank you so much. Do you still have something that we haven't talked about that you wished we had?
There's so much, and I talk about. I mentioned Elicitation, and we scratched the surface with it a little. We talked a little about body language and the psychology behind it, the writing of the books and that kind of thing. There's so many areas that we could go deeper into, and of course, you're looking at the training of an intelligence officer can take like 6 to 12 months, depending on so many different factors, and can't condense that down into like a kind of 1 hour session. Yeah. But I'm happy to put it out there, for your followers, that if there's a specific area that they would like to know more about, maybe how to get top secret information, how to actually, the process of recruiting an asset, or counter surveillance drills, or anything along those lines. By all means, I'm happy to come back if you want to ask your guests, and if you get a response that you think is a popular one, I'm more than happy to come back and go deeper into any of the topics.
Cool, that would be awesome. Well, then, thank you so much for your time, and maybe next time.
Wonderful, no problem, and thank you for having me.